Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye coverage of the 2014 elections continues. We're at the Milwaukee Public Library. He's a Democrat running in the 19th Assembly District. Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Just this note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Dan, give us the short version of your bio and why you're qualified and why you're running.
You bet. Well, again, thank you for having me, and I'm a fourth-generation Wisconsinite. My parents raised me in Beloit, Wisconsin. My parents were raised in Waukesha and Racine, and my wife and I are Milwaukeeans by choice. We both went to law school in the UW system in Madison. After law school, John Chisholm hired both of us to be prosecutors in the DA's office, so we came by choice. We cut our teeth in the DA's office. We've both migrated to private practice at this point, but it was really in that job, working for the people, taking huge caseloads and having the same goal for each case, which is what is the best thing for the entire community, that we really hope to bring back into politics, because in this state, given the gross partisan divide that's occurred here, people aren't looking, politicians aren't looking as to the best interest of the entire community. They're looking to further the interests of those people who are writing them campaign checks and who are the loudest people in the room. Again, not the aggregate of what's the best thing for the state.
Well, I want to ask about two issues that you highlight on your website. Let's talk about schools first. You toured 15 MPS schools. What did you find?
Well, I did, and that was deliberate from the onset. When I look at every urban issue confronting Milwaukee, whether that's economics, crime, even environmental concerns, it all goes back to the one thing that government can do, and that's to improve the education system. And being someone who practices in criminal law, that was outside of my scope of policy expertise, so I wanted to do my homework, frankly, and go talk to educators and school leaders and say, hey, we all know that there's a crisis in education in Milwaukee. We have a 60% graduation rate, four-year graduation rate in MPS. We know that's unacceptable. We know that kids who drop out of college, or excuse me, drop out of high school, are more likely to be my clients and be in the criminal courts than not. And frankly, that's unacceptable. So I wanted to see, from MPS, from charter leaders, from even choice schools, what's going right, what's going wrong, what do they need, so that as a representative, I would be able to carry all of their water for the kids.
Well, if you could wave one wand, how would you fix MPS? Biggest change?
Well, and that's the thing, and we've been working a long time, this whole community. We know that there's been a crisis, and we've been taking deliberate actions to try to rectify it, and there is no one magic wand. I mean, if you could have one thing, it would be every parent that sends their kid to an MPS or a charter or a choice school would be completely involved. They'd be dropping their child off, they'd be picking the child up, they'd go to every teacher conference, they'd know what homework was being assigned that day, what was going on in the classroom. Unfortunately, in this community, we don't have that. We don't have complete parental involvement. So what we do have to do is focus on what are the good schools and what are the good school leaders, and allow them to take more kids. And this has gotten me in some hot water because I'm willing to kind of step on, I think, the third rail of Milwaukee politics, which is to say, hey, if it's a charter school and you're doing a great job, I want to help you. If you're an MPS school, like the collection of Montessori schools here in town that are MPS run, I want to help you, and I want to help you expand.
What about choice schools?
Well, certainly, yeah, and
you would include them under?
I would include them, and again, that's kind of the third rail, and that's something I'm not going to back away from. Unfortunately, there are a lot of choice schools that are not being held accountable. They're not transparent. They're not doing a good job. We need to contract them. We need to contract them now. They're taking public money. As I see them, they're part of the public education system at this point. I'm being a realist. There's 25,000 kids in choice schools right now. Some of them are being underserved, and that's a scandal. We need to make sure that those operators are providing a better service, frankly, than any other school if they're going to take public monies.
Do you think vouchers should continue to go statewide with or without caps on enrollment in the next state budget?
Yeah, I'm against statewide.
You're against statewide.
And that's, again, when people say, well, he's a voucher guy, well, he's not, he's a charter guy. I always say, no, I'm an education guy. And I'm going to address each bill that comes in front of the legislature, honestly. And in my view, statewide expansion of the program, nobody was really calling for it. It seems that the governor has created a middle-class entitlement program. And in the Journal-Sentinel, it was reported most of the outstate, consumers of the voucher were already going to private schools. So, we weren't including any, working class or poorer people to get into private schools where they were in a failing school system. All we did was create a giveaway for middle-class parents.
I'm going to ask about another issue that you highlight because it's one of the subjects that I'd like to touch on. You report that 48% of city roads are in poor condition. This gets into the larger issue. There's a projected $650 million deficit in the next 2-year state budget in terms of funding transportation. How would you make up that shortfall, Dan?
Oh boy, and it's a huge deal. I think it's a matter of priorities. It seems like Governor Walker's priority is to build highways, to Taylor County, and nothing against Medford, but they don't need bigger highways or lane expansions or anything else. What we need to do is focus on existing infrastructure and rebalance, as it is the balance of investment.
Are you willing to put some of these major projects on hold because we don't have enough money? Or
sure.
Are you willing to vote for some type of higher taxes to make up that shortfall?
I'm not a big tax guy. If we talk, there's been this idea of tolls being bandied about. I think that's an interesting idea. Anytime the public can have an immediate fee for a use of public infrastructure, I think that makes a lot more sense than divesting that fee down the road with an income tax or a sales tax. So I think that's interesting. I'm not immediately going to pound the table for it, but I think it's something we have to look into.
City of Milwaukee has a huge stake in some of these debates with the Zoo Freeway, $1.7 billion, the Hone Bridge, but you haven't been convinced that we need a tax increase.
I have not been.
Is that a fair summary?
You bet.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's a matter of just reweighing the priorities.
As I do these interviews with candidates, it's more clear to me than ever that Common Core is going to be a major issue. I should have asked that when we did the follow-up on schools, but your position on Common Core?
Well, and this is, again, doing my homework and being deliberate about going to school leaders and saying, what's working, what's not working. And every one of those 15 schools, I asked, there's a Common Core coming down the chute, how are you dealing with it? And to a T, only one school said we're having a tough time with it. 14 out of 15 said no problem. And a lot of teachers I've spoken to say, it actually frees me up from some of guessing as to where my students need to be. There's a lot of misconceptions about Common Core. It's not curriculum. It's just they're just benchmarks per grade, and it's been liberating to teachers. They can actually be more entrepreneurial, teaching towards these standards rather than get boxed in with some top-down curriculum. And so no one here in Milwaukee is having an issue, so I'm going to support it. Makes no sense to me to throw this project out. It's been years and years in the making, and inject the state legislature into creating standards.
Let's get into health care. As you know, Governor Walker and the leaders of the Senate and the Assembly told the federal government, even though you're offering to pay for an expansion of MA, no thanks. Wise or unwise decision?
I think it's unwise. The money is there. I certainly respect Scott Walker's position that at a certain point, state leaders have to turn away federal money if we're ever going to get federal spending under control. I think it's actually an intellectually honest position, but I disagree with it. At this point, someone making $12,000 an individual would not be qualified for Medicaid. That's a scandal. I mean, think of how little money that is, and to pay all your bills and then to enter a healthcare exchange, which, again, Scott Walker has not made easy for Wisconsin residents. I think that's a scandal. He should have taken the money. If the money dries up, we could always opt out of the program.
I see. Okay. Your reaction to Judge Crabb's ruling on same-sex marriages?
Overjoyed. This is huge. This is the civil rights struggle of my generation, certainly. I would actually include education in that. But I have too many gay and lesbian friends who are sick and tired of being discriminated against, feeling like second-class citizens. And frankly, I'm ashamed that it had to go the route of litigation to get where we are, and it's still being litigated. In the legislature, I'm going to push to clear up the gay marriage ban, and it's going to take several sessions. It's going to take a lot of persuading. It's going to take persuading of the Republican Party to say, hey, it's not in your best interest to fight this losing battle. And frankly, on doorsteps around the 19th District, talking with all types of voters, even conservative voters understand that the gig's up. Gay marriage is here to stay. And frankly, as they know more and more gay and lesbian people themselves, their hearts and minds are turning. And they realize that, hey, a solid family structure, no matter if there's a dad and a dad or a mom and a mom, that's good. And that's overall, it's a good thing for Milwaukee.
As an assistant ADA, you must have a position on this. 2 candidates for Attorney General say first offense OWI should be a crime. Should it, sir?
Yes. Yeah. We're an outlier in the United States. We need to attach, more than anything, a social stigma above and beyond the civil forfeiture that OWIs are now. I'm not saying anyone has to do years and years of jail time for an OWI. People make mistakes. But certainly there needs to be something more than the state sends you a ticket in the mail, you send back a check. I mean, there has to be a real stigma attached to drinking and driving because it's so dangerous.
And on another criminal justice issue, you and I could talk for an hour on this, but give me the short version. Wisconsin leads the nation in putting African Americans in prison. Why? What are the systemic reasons for that? We could talk for a long time, but the short version?
This is huge for me, and it's personal to me. I sit in a jail cell much like this, this length between you and I, with generally 17 to 35-year-old black men. And we talk about, how did you get here? What are we going to tell the judge about how you got to this spot, why you did what you did, and what you're going to do forward. And again, that's why when I say education comes into every urban issue, education is huge for the incarceration problem. But it's not just education, it's the breakdown in the family structure. A lot of my clients have never met their fathers. They have bounced around residences all over Milwaukee. They've bounced around schools, and they've never really put down roots. And they've never created a self-narrative for themselves that goes beyond being a tough guy. And from my point of view, we can fill that narrative that every child wakes up and says, who am I today with education to say, I'm a smart guy, I'm really good at math, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be an engineer, or even a welder, or something in the trades. We can remove that self-doubt and that narrative of these kids, these clients of mine who just say, I want to be the baddest guy who everybody respects because I'm tough. And we can do that in the education system. Another
issue that's being debated both in Madison and Washington, the minimum wage. Should it be increased, sir?
Federally, yes. I absolutely.
How high?
$10.10 an hour, I think, is the what's being bandied about, and I think that's fine, and I hope that the entire country does that.
Okay. Want to give you a chance to raise any other issues that are important to you that I haven't asked about, sir.
Well, the biggest one for any legislator from Milwaukee, and it's not a sexy issue, but it's state shared revenue. It pays 45% of the city's bills here in Milwaukee, and it's important to every municipality. And this is income tax that's gathered statewide. The state pays its bills, and then with a revenue formula sends it back to municipalities. And City of Milwaukee used to pay 52% of its bills through state shared revenue.
Right.
And it's the way that someone who lives in Ozaukee, someone who lives in Waukesha County, who plays here, who recreates here, and who works here, most importantly, that they pay into the greatness of the city and pays for our bills. I mean, we have the U.S. Bank Tower, and people are on the 20th floor. Well, in Cedarburg, you don't need the hook and ladder system to get to the 20th floor of a building.
Mm-hmm.
So just because they sleep there in Cedarburg doesn't mean that they're not taking part in sharing in the costs of Milwaukee's infrastructure, and they should be paying for that. And right now there is a pretty good contribution from ring suburbs. I'd like to see it at least stay, if not increase. But again, this kind of goes to a bigger issue in my campaign, which is, here's this kind of wonky issue that nobody's paying attention to. It's never going to be on a billboard. Nobody's going to have placards and bullhorns about this. But the Milwaukee delegation should be focused like a laser beam on state shared revenue day in and day out, because we can talk about, frack sand mining or another issue that's important outstate, but here in Milwaukee, that's the #1 issue.
And then finally, I want to give you a chance, if you want to highlight differences between you and your primary opponents.
Oh, big time. There's big differences. I think the difference is clear. I'm the only candidate in the race who wants the job for what it is. We're running to be a legislator, and as I see it, the job description is to legislate. It's not to be, as my opponent Jonathan Brostoff often says, to run around the state and campaign for other Democrats. That's kind of his idea of what a legislator from 19th District has to be doing. And I think he's justified saying, hey, we need to build back the power in the assembly or else we're kind of shut out. But that's not the job. Marina Dmitrievic is looking for a job as a placeholder for something else. She never had any interest in going to the State House before the taxpayers voted her a pay decrease and a loss of power on the county board, something that was a long time coming. And with some leadership, she could have circumvented that effort. But she didn't. So now she's looking to fill her day and frankly, to have another elected position, again, at the detriment of what the job actually is, which is to go to Madison, persuade the majority that Milwaukee is a great place. You don't have to take pity on us. We're doing fine, just don't, stick it to us. And that's going to take someone who's engaged, not there to get in the newspaper or be on TV or send out press releases, but really is going to work with the majority and say, hey, listen, we're the economic engine of the state, we're the cultural jewel of the state. As Milwaukee goes, as does go Wisconsin. And I think I'm just much better suited to do that. My experience in the courtrooms as an adversary, in a very adversarial process, has equipped me with the ability to realize somebody is an adversary and not an enemy. And we can fight like cats and dogs, but it's better to persuade them outside of the cameras and give our adversaries a gracious way of coming to the right conclusion. And then leaving, and saying, I respect your position. Here we'll fight, but let's go out and maybe drink a beer and try to build some rapport.
Excellent. Dan Adams is a Democratic candidate in the 19th Assembly District in Milwaukee. Dan, thanks for visiting with the Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you.
Thank you.